We just crawled out of the Sarlacc pit, and we're here to talk Mandalorian Season 2 on In the Can, part of the Barmurner Podcast Network. Wait a minute, is that Bill Burr?
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Where?
This you must determine. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
So I've heard.
This is the way.
Well, we've been told that this is the way. We've been told that the child is safe in the Mandalorian's arms. And I'm joined now by my colleague, Mitch, the scruffiest nerf herder that I know. I don't know if you actually like this show or not, but I need your opinion right now generally on Season 2.
Dank Ferrick. It was a fun ride. It was, endings and spoiler alerts aside. You can't deny that it was an entertaining season to watch. Some new things, some old things from Star Wars, but I was entertained.
I mean, do you like this season more than Season 1, would you say, overall?
No.
Yeah?
I liked Season 1. I liked the way that it was going, that it was, and I'm trying to avoid, my issues with the finale, with some of the second season, but I liked that it was just so open. I liked the idea of a outer rim, understanding that Baby Yoda is, tied to the greater Star Wars universe, but that it was a little bit more distant. And I think Season 2 is when we found that maybe the Star Wars universe, as expansive as it is really not as expansive as we'd like it to be.
Yeah, you just hit on kind of an issue. Is Star Wars actually a little bit watched? I mean, is it not as expansive as the purchasers, Disney overlords, thought it was when they first paid like $1 billion for it? Actually, like $10 to $20 billion, I think, or something like that, when they bought it from George Lucas in 2012, and thought they'd established this whole new world. They got Marvel, they've got all these different properties, and they're like, we're gonna build this whole universe out of this shit. And really, we just keep going back to Luke Skywalker, man. Like we can't get out of Luke Skywalker's shadow, aliens that look exactly like Yoda. And I believe you mean Grogu when you say Baby Yoda. By the way, he shall be known as the first of his name on this podcast.
The kid, Grogu, the child, however
Okay.
It as at one point Mando refers to him. It's no longer an expanded universe, right? Technically, and it seems metaphorically, maybe. It just seems to contract some, which is fine. But no, I mean, I like the first season just because it was so wide open. Season 2, it's cool to see some familiar faces, but I err on the side of maybe not so seeing some familiar faces that I prefer.
Yeah, we'll get to that the last episode. Do you know the name of the Rebel drop trooper without looking right now?
Cara Dune.
You got it. That's right. That's right. I thought I was going to get you with that. But, I mean, my point is like, I mean, you're an original trilogy guy. Like, you're a big Star Wars fan. That's one of the things that we talk about a lot in pop culture. And you saw the prequels as well. You kind of are in that age where you came up and saw those as well. But the original trilogy is kind of your shit. You have not really, you've watched some of Clone Wars, the animated show. I don't think you've seen any of Rebels. Is that right?
No.
So you're like I say like most Star Wars fans probably. Not a super fan in terms of like consuming everything. And I mean, there's now like books and comics that are all canon that like tell all this stuff that all the fanboys wanted to see in all the movies. And I don't read any of that, you know. And I've seen Clone Wars, I've seen some of Rebels, but not even the whole thing. But there's important, as it turns out, there's like really important shit in all those things that like I guess I need to go watch so I can fully grasp what else is going on if I intend to like be a part of this universe. But now they've essentially like roped me in on like all this content that maybe I don't care as much about. I mean, I do, like it's Star Wars, but like it's not for me, right? Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yeah. And that's hard, right? Because I am a Star Wars fan. I've always considered myself a Star Wars fan. But where do you draw the line? You know, I mean, I think I probably will continue to watch all of the live action shows that are coming out. I know there's like the Bad Squad, you know, Ahsoka's getting her own show, Obi-Wan, obviously. But yeah, I'm not reading comics, you know, even video games that are starting to become canon now. And that's the issue, right? Is that they're canonizing that word is so loaded. Whereas when you see Marvel, you know, well, there's 12 different Spider-Mans in different universes. So you just sort of, you're along for the ride. Where here, you know, Darksaber, Mandalore, you know, going into Rebels, and then some of the later, you know, books and comics. Yeah, I mean, it's I want to be able to consume it all. I know that I can't, and it feels like I'm sort of being left out. You know, you're sitting in the theater and you can't look at someone next to you and say, "Oh, I get that reference." You know, maybe it doesn't make all the difference in the world, but you know, there are tiny references throughout already. You know, from Rogue One to Solo, that if you aren't as familiar with Clone Wars and Rebels and maybe some other items, you sort of miss out on, and that's upsetting for, you know, someone who's always considered himself a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it can be kind of alienating. I mean, as we get older and we get less time, we develop time to our careers and families and stuff. I mean, you can't just like cram hours and hours of content and pay attention to it, where you can like know when a character shows up, their backstory, history. You could dive on Wikipedia, you know, and figure that shit out. But it's like, it's tough. I mean, and I've seen a little bit more than you have. And even I was like, I watched it with my fiance and my soon-to-be wife. And when Ahsoka showed up, the intention of the filmmakers of Filoni, who directed that episode, who's like the in-house Lucasfilm nerd. He's like the guy, like if you cram all the Twitter guys into one, like all the anonymous Twitter people that talk shit into one guy that actually works at Lucasfilms, like he's it. But he like really cares. But anyway, you could tell he wanted people to be like, "Oh shit, Ahsoka." And I turned to Ivy and I was like, "Do you even know who this is? Do you care?" He was like, "No." And I was like, I mean, this is the thing.
Bo-Katan, right? Bo-Katan is the same way, where, I mean, that's a huge loaded character, as I understand it from Clone Wars, and I don't know her entire history.
Rebel. Yeah.
Or Rebels, but as I understand it, if you know her history, the scenes are a lot more loaded, and the final outcome is a lot more loaded, understanding what she's been through, the person that she is, you know, her values, versus, you know, you get her in The Mandalorian and you understand, you know, she explains who she is and what she's aiming for, but all you know is basically, you know, 2 or 3 episodes worth of her explanation of what her deal is.
You know, and let me back up. I like this show. I enjoy watching it. I don't look forward to it as much as I did the sequel trilogies. Maybe that's just a product of like the big movie thing. And these are quick little hour episodes. It's weird when it drops because people watch it on Thursday night. It's like stay up and watch it when it drops at like 11 Central, because it drops at midnight Eastern, I think, or maybe it like staggers. But either way, I wake up to spoilers every morning, you know, just on the media people that I follow. And like, I could either just like not get on social media at all on Friday and to wait until I can watch the episode, and that's an interesting component of this too. But I mean, it's a good, well-made show. It's done the universe justice. Like, I have no complaints about the production quality or like anything. It's perfectly fine. I do wish I was probably younger when it came out. You know, I think that I might have enjoyed it a little bit more if this had been around instead of the sequels, let's say, even though the sequels have kind of a special place in my heart for some reason. It's probably the time I saw them. But I thought this show was going to be like live action Clone Wars. I thought like Bug Lady episode, and like that's what it was going to be. It was going to be little adventures with Mando and Grogu doing like some shit that doesn't really matter. Like, they're not saving the universe. There's not a giant laser about to blow up like everyone that we care about. It's like they're just
like a cartoon. like a cartoon
Yeah.
feel to it. And then any given offshoot episode, and there's been a couple of those, I guess, where he goes on, especially more so in the first season, where he goes on to sort of he'll just go and help a village for sort of no reason. And he beats Cardoon there. But they're little one-off where he does a job essentially, and that's the end of it. You probably aren't going to see most of those characters again. And I think the second season, whether intentional or not, blew that up, right? I mean, now it's connected again, so it's for the greater picture.
Where does it here? I mean, there's going to be a season. We've been told. A lot of people after this episode ended were like, okay, that's it. Like they thought the end was when he handed off Grogu to his future master, as Jedi Master Luke Walker, the CGI face, which we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, and then where does this go? I mean, do we follow Mando or Din Djarin? That's a really tough name. I feel like they could have workshopped that a little bit more, just to make it easier to say. Because everyone just says Mando because his name's preposterous. Because it's like saying seashells by the seashore. It's like I don't know about this.
Yeah,
but I don't get paid by Lucasfilm. But I mean, where does it go? Like, and do we care? I feel like I'm being so cynical right now, but it's like I don't know. I need to talk about this. I haven't really talked about this with anybody yet.
I came into this almost hoping that you would be for it because I wanted to push against it. I would hate to think that the Mandalorian season 3 would not focus on the Mandalorian, right? I think they have to diverge Grogu and Din Djarin. And I guess Mando's path is potentially the dark savior of Mandalore, right? They set that up. I mean, very clearly, it ended on I guess you could call it a cliffhanger with Bo-Katan being very upset that, she didn't actually physically defeat Moff Gideon in combat.
Right, she has to kick his ass in order to be the queen, right? Like that's
gray area, right?
Yeah.
What is combat? I mean, is it thumb wars? Is it a wrestling match? I don't know. Yeah. But she seems to think that it is something a little bit more than just I yield to you. I guess they could do a jump in time. I don't know. I mean, I am intrigued on what happens with Grogu, right? I mean, he is. I guess maybe he becomes somewhat of a Jedi. Luke trains him. What does that mean for Luke and his temple, and where's Grogu? When we get into 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Or sorry,
7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Does Kylo Ren kill his ass? I mean, or does he get out of there before? And he already escaped Order 66, right? Like he was trained in the original Jedi Temple, and then gets out of Dodge before Order 66. Is like a universe, just like as a commodity, from person to person, until Empire gets him or wants to get him so they can extract his blood. Mention his MIDI count, which is midi-chlorians for any of you George Lucas. Which tells me maybe they're trying to create Force individuals, or is it to clone Palpatine? And if it's to clone Palpatine, I'm going to fuck off to Jon Favreau and probably not even watch another episode. Because if they try to explain the fuck up with episode 9 by doing all this stuff and be like, no, it was the plan the whole time, I will take issue with that.
So I think I would have to guess that's the direction, because we have Dr. Persing, is that his name? Who's a clone doctor. That's what he does, right? So we already know clones are involved. There was the episode where they go and blow up the base. There's the tube. You see a tube something. Is that a Snoke character? And then throughout,
we have a jar full of Snokes in 18 years. There's a jar full of Snokes somewhere.
And then the Empire continues to mention order. Moff Gideon says something along the lines of, you don't know how
order.
They keep mentioning order, first order. So I guess, it almost seems to me like a Rogue One-ish is the direction they're going to explain, the hole in the Death Star, right? Well, what's the hole in the whole Palpatine plot? Well, I guess we could throw in what I would think would be a waste of a great character in Grogu to explain, arguably a non-well thought out plot point with Palpatine. But
yeah, that would be something. If he's created just purely to explain how they were able to clone a Jedi or whatever. Yeah, that'd be something.
So at one point I thought that maybe the Dark Troopers had some force something or other. I thought that was the direction they were going, and I think that'd be kind of cool. I mean, maybe there's some canon out there that explains why you can't do that. I guess Grievous, well, he couldn't use the Force, right? So that
he was
would
just
be
a lizard he was just a lizard in a mechanical costume.
He would not do well. He would be definitely he'd be highly sensitive to COVID right now, high risk for sure.
Real tough for
yeah.
And then the open heart casket too. You merely pull a couple of flaps back, and then his freaking heart's exposed. It's like you really could have thought that out better. I feel like really bad programming there.
But yeah, so I would guess that's where they're going with Grogu. I mean, whether he makes it out of Luke's temple alive, or I guess what were they gonna do with him? We understood from the beginning that the Empire wanted him for something. This is post Return of the Jedi, but prior to Snoke or anyone else.
It is 7 years post Return of the Jedi.
Okay. I mean, I guess not knowing what we know now, what are his other options? Grogu, right? He just sort of lives in adventures with Mando. I guess that's kind of cool. Yoda was like, 500 years old or something. So unless 900. So unless Grogu is killed, he's clearly aging well. I mean, I think he's 50, right? Don't they establish that, or it's somewhere at some point?
Yeah.
Granted, if he was 50 and is like, can't even speak and is just gooing and guying, what's another 20, 30 years until, Force Awakens or however long it is. I mean, he's probably like a rebellious teenager at that point. I don't know probably even younger than that. If 50 is basically infant and they live to 900, he may not be well developed at all by that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what is his emotional intelligence? So we think, like, you're the expert on this. Is he like 1.5, like comparatively to a human? 2?
I mean, if you're talking, being able to speak and things like that, I mean, he can't, right? Yoda could speak. It was an interesting dialect, but he could speak. So if we're talking, Grogu, he's probably under like 1.5 relative to child years as far as, language skills and maybe emotional intelligence as well.
Well, right. So like if it's even over the course of the show, even if it goes to the sequel trilogy timeline, which is 30 years later, that means he's like 3 or 4 in terms of like, unless they age differently, which they could just do whatever the fuck they want because it's like obviously alien aging, and they could be like, oh, actually the second he turns 50, then he enters this rapid phase of development, and then you have to be like, okay, cool, but like, yeah, that is kind of like interesting that he's basically like, Yoda's 8 times older than him, or actually 16 times older than him, but it's like if he's 2 basically as a human, then Yoda would only be like 32 if you like equivalent the 50 years, and Yoda's clearly like elderly. So I don't know. You do that shit. I'm not
going to go on the record with my math on that one, but yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I guess he's hiding his Force sensitivity. So maybe that has something to do with his sort of, regression into like deep childhood, infancy, but that seems a little loaded. It seems like he's just supposed to be, they age differently because they live so long. It takes them longer to develop. So he's 50 and really not able to communicate or really do anything.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little quick about the creators of the show. So it's most of the showrunner of the show is Jon Favreau, who from he did the first 2 Iron Mans. He did Cowboys and Aliens. He's back to even the 90s. He did all the Swingers. He kind of was part of the indie film craze in the 90s. Showed up in Sopranos to do like a kind of a parody of himself. So he's like a real successful guy in Hollywood. Is apparently a huge Star Wars guy. I didn't realize this about him, but he clearly understands like the lore and has all of the different things. There's a lot of in jokes in the show, and he writes most of the episodes, with the exception of a few throughout the series. He directs a lot of the episodes. However, he does pass it off to like some of his boys in Hollywood. Bryce Dallas directed a couple, Ron Howard's daughter, and an actor in her own right. And then Robert Rodriguez came in and directed an episode, which is the dude that did like From Dusk Till Dawn and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Corrado. I don't know if you've ever seen those. He's like a pulpy kind of action guy. He did the Boba Fett episode.
So he's doing. He's Book of Boba, right?
Yeah, he's doing Book of Boba Fett. So like, it's basically if you come in, do a decent job, and John likes you, they're just like, here, have a show. They're like, here's $80 million to go. Yeah, move to Lucasfilm or wherever the fuck it is, wherever they shoot all these things. whatever set, and then like you just make whatever you want. You write all of those scripts or whatever, and like that's cool. We're getting a lot of content, but like at some point, man, like it's already a lot to watch The Mandalorian. It's a lot of Star Wars because we've never had it like this. It's usually like we have 9 movies total over like 40 years, and then suddenly like every week we're getting this new piece of mythology and lore that changes everything that we knew about the characters. I mean, when they pop in, when you have like a major legacy character pop in for a little bit, you're like, wait a minute, how does this affect? Like, what were they doing at this time? And it's a big space, right? You got 30 years between Jedi and Force Awakens. You got a lot of like play box, and I think they're really interested in that space because that's where Ahsoka's set. That's where Obi-Wan's going to be set. I don't know about the other shows. Book of Boba is obviously set then because it picks up kind of where it leaves off in this. So they're really interested there. So that's kind of the making of the show, and I feel like the craftsmanship's good, like the writing's good, and like the direction's good. I'm not like ever that looks cheap. I know I've mentioned that before, but I have no complaints there. What do you think about all that stuff?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of like the Star Wars fatigue, right? It was something special, It's almost like getting Christmas 4 times a year at this point. When the prequels came out, it was such big news, and you were so excited. And then when the sequels came out and some of the one-offs like Solo, it was still very exciting, but it was sort of getting to the point, I think, and that's sort of when Solo didn't do as well. Maybe that was the concern, is they're just pushing this out too often, and now it's the streaming as opposed to the movies. I think I will try to continue to watch all of it, but if you're telling me that sort of like Marvel's doing, where there's 5 or 6 shows going on at a time, I mean, there's just no way. I'm gonna have to pick and choose. I'll stay true to Mando, Book of Boba, I think, and it'll may just end up being the ones that come out the most recently are the ones that I pay attention to, and the other ones just sort of get pushed away. As far as sort of diluting your classic characters, I agree with that. I mean, you look at Boba Fett, who had all of 10 seconds in Empire and maybe a couple minutes in Jedi. You go back and he's a kid in Clone Wars, or in Attack of the Clones, so who cares? But now we're learning about Boba, the way that we never would. He seems to be, I mean, I guess I was surprised that he sort of stood up to his side of the bargain. It's almost like he's a moralistic kind of guy. He got his armor back, tracked Mando across the galaxy, and then is willing to just, throw his life on the line to protect Grogu because he said that, I'll make a deal with you. I guess that's just not how I pictured Boba. Later on, he just sort of shoots Bib Fortuna for no reason, as far as we know. So he's still, got that sort of cold-heartedness. But I guess my point is, it's developing this character that we knew nothing about. And is it better to have it like that, or really to just, use your imagination as to what Boba was like, just this sort of silent bounty hunter out there, really no skin in any game other than to make a dime.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, I think the answer to your question too. Like, it's usually better to, like the shark in Jaws, right? You don't know shit about it. You just know it's like evil, and that's important, I think, sometimes for tertiary characters. Boba Fett was a non-factor. It was a toy that got really popular, and like it was cool, and we were kids, and it was awesome. But I didn't need to know anything about him. And then we get the clone shit. Okay, now he suddenly becomes Tamira Morrison in the suit because he has to be, So you have to cast this guy who's like not really acting. He's not doing anything. I mean, I don't know why he got the Django part anyway, but he did. But so then you have to cast this guy who has gained like 100 pounds since then, and like so that he's got like fat Boba armor on, and like it's just like it's like you said. I always thought of him as a very villainous person that probably didn't live up to much of a code, if at all. And now he's revealed to be this incredibly virtuous individual that is a hero in the show for no reason other than the fact that Mando like lets him get his armor out of his ship before it gets blown up. It doesn't even let him. Boba just gets it, like steals it kind of while Mando's fighting all the stormtroopers or whatever. And
there's
how do you feel when Boba shows up? He shows up at the end, like the stinger almost of the first episode, and it's like he's fucked up looking because the Sarlacc obviously did its work on him. But it's like I knew it was him because like I'm a big Star Wars guy, but like I've had friends that didn't even know who that was because they're like he looks so different, and it's like and they haven't thought about Tamir Morrison in 20 years since Attack of the Clones came out. Like
So remind me, did he show up at the end of the episode with Timothy Oliphant with essentially Boba's? He's wielding Boba's armor the entire time. Yeah.
He's like on the cliff face, like with the setting sun, and he watches Mando like drive by on the speeder bike. Yeah. He like turns around and gives that real steely Bruce Willis look into the camera. And like, I mean, no one knew who that was. Like, it goes back to like, if you're not like tuned in on this shit, do you even care what you're watching? Are you just like, who the fuck is that? I did like the Timothy Oliphant kind of reversal of like, you think it's Boba and then it's not. It's this other guy. Like that was a cool episode.
Yeah,
like
he didn't fill out the suit necessarily, whereas the classic actor definitely does fill it out. Does, I'd prefer my Boba to be silent, and to maybe give a head nod and to be eaten by the Sarlacc. And you heard, it's almost like you're a character and you heard rumors that he escaped, but you don't know if that's canon or if it's EU or you didn't read that comic book, right? So he's just this sort of mythological character, whereas now he's going to be like taking over Jabba's gang, I guess, or now we're going to learn learn even more about him. And frankly, the more I learn, the less I like about Boba. And maybe he's like the encapsulation of it all, because he had all of 5 minutes, and he's getting his own series at this point.
Like, what about him is interesting? Like, other than like him standing there malevolently, the occasional nod, the threat of physical violence, the fact that we know he's really good at his job because he tracked Han when Han thought he was slick, letting go with the garbage. Then Boba and the Slave One follow. You're like, oh, this fucking guy knows what's up. Like the rest of the bounty hunters can't track him, but like Boba's the one, and you could spot him in that lineup when they first bring the bounty hunters on. You're like, that guy seems to be like a little bit elevated. Like he's a higher tier bounty hunter. And now it's just like, I don't know, man. Like the Book of Boba Fett, what's the show about? Is it like an episode where like someone comes before him and then it's just like him either killing that person or helping them? Like what is it like the Godfather of Star Wars? I bet that's how it was pitched. They're like, we're going to totally make the Godfather in Star Wars.
Yeah, right. And Godfather plus Star Wars, like that's a hit, right?
Oh yeah, it'll at least subscribe 1 million more people. But the question is Boba Fett as interesting as Michael Corleone or fucking Vito Corleone, or is Tamira Morrison as good of an actor as like Al Pacino or Marlon Brando? I mean, look, I don't know why they're even doing that. I really found it interesting that got greenlighted, other than the fact that Disney has too much money to know what they do to do with.
Yeah, I mean, when rumors of the Mandalorian came out, you assumed that it was Boba, right? Because I mean, I guess
that's true. I should have expected it.
Yeah, I was not. Yeah. I'm not as well versed on Mandalore culture from Clone Wars, but that's what I assumed happened, and he didn't get it right. It's a different person, and maybe they just had already written some of this, or maybe they just thought, well, everyone loves Boba, but I feel like Boba, all of a sudden, his coolness factor sort of drops because if what you were attracted to it originally was the armor, there's a whole culture, a whole world that rocks that armor, and apparently has a greater right to it than Boba does. Who's just I guess a special clone. So I don't know that it needs to be made. Maybe it'll be great. That's one that I'll probably watch. Fennec, I don't really care about Fennec. I mean, I don't know she doesn't have a story to me. She's just a sharpshooter that Boba saved, and
she's a hired gun, right? She's a physical character.
A hired gun, right? Yeah. She's like in the
attack. Like he's like somehow like a cybernetic surgeon. Like he like replaced all of her innards with.
He knows how to do that. That's it's easy, right? I mean, when you're in the middle of the Tatooine desert, I mean, it's easy to do. And then she owes him a life debt, I guess. But I'm not super interested in her character. Maybe if she like turned or something on them, if she really is a hired gun and is in it for the money, all of a sudden I guess one thing that always just sort of bugged me about this is like, they've got the kid, right, is like a tagline that anyone will jump onto, right? You can just Darth Vader, if they would have found him, be like, hey, they've got the kid, then like he'd be like, yeah, I'll help. Like Bo-Katan does it, Fett does it, I guess, out of honor for his dead. But Fennec is on board as well because Boba is like, they all really like this kid, and Grogu's cute. Like it's it's a great little character. But this motley crew that comes together to save Grogu, it feels like there's a piece missing there for me as to why everyone is willing to really put their neck on the line for any given, just for Grogu.
Yeah, they have the goods sort of though. I mean, Grogu's a great character creation. Like usually, you question whether the sequel trilogy was plotted out, like whether they had like a clear plan. Then you get in episode 9, and it's clear they're just trying to like throw a bunch of shit at you and hope that you like it because they don't have like what they wanted to happen. And so, but with this, they kind of had some goods. Like they had some commodities. They have characters that are pretty good. I liked the Mandalorian character. I like the performance from Pedro Pascal. I like some of the expansion of the stuff. I like when they go to the it's like they're on that the truck and they have to like fight off all those dudes that are trying to steal the explosive, and they get to the Bill Burr episode, and then they have that one asshole like Imperial commander that's like basically like, yeah, and he's like a kind of a shit bag that you'd think would be like a low level commander. Really, we only see these like British guys, these cold British guys on ships, and this guy's kind of like, what the guy that you'd actually think would do the dirty work. And I like that stuff. Like that's the stuff that I like.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. It feels well plot out, right? I mean, I have no doubt that they had a good idea for where they were going the entire time, Luke or not at the end. But whether I like where they went is a different story. It is a cohesive, well-written, series. I'm not, I don't question that. But at the same time, I don't know that I like where they're going with it.
Yeah, I mean the thing is you like when you show your sons eventually Star Wars and they're able to like process it, and you have this whole process. Like you're gonna show them Boba Fett, and they're gonna see Boba in the original trilogy, or however you decide to show it to them. They're gonna figure out he's a clone, and then they're gonna have like see the Mandalorian at some point, and he's gonna have this whole other thing, and they're gonna have that as one understanding of the character. There's not gonna be like a period of time where we've process this a different year. And I wonder if that's better or what. Like, is that just like, or are we just old fogies that like latched on to a character that we thought we had established in our heads, and now he's something else? So we're like, wait a minute, like we don't want this. Like we're baby boomers about it. So we can boomer us all day because we probably deserve it after this podcast. But all right, when Baby Yoda Grogu is on the like little pad thing, like calling all the Jedi on like the whatever, like the Bluetooth, and they're like, and it's spinning for a while, and he's like reaching out to all of them, and then it stops, and it's like, okay, he called the Jedi, and then Ahsoka has that line which says, "There's not many of us left." Order 66, Ravaged Jedi. The only Jedi, in fact, that we know exist right now that I knew existed were Ahsoka, Luke, whoever Luke is training at the time, if that's even started yet, and then what's his name, the main character of Rebels. Because Rebels takes place before this, basically, even in that 7 years. So there's like the main character kid of Rebels, Ezra, that's his name. He's being trained in Rebels, and then ends up becoming sort of a Jedi, but like a informally trained one. He's around too. So immediately when that happened, I was like, all right, well, it's got to be one of those people, because I don't think they invent another Jedi that we just don't know about, although they could have. And it's not going to be Ahsoka because we just saw her. And it's like, why would she be like, all right, go the fuck away, and then show up to like rescue him? That seemed weird. And so in the back of my head, I knew it was going to be Luke. Like I knew it. I knew they were going to do it, but I didn't think they'd actually do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What did you think when he was calling Jedi? Were you like, didn't think anything of it? Did you think there's going to be a Jedi showing up at some point? Did you assume it was going to be Luke before you found out that it was Luke? Because you found that out before you saw the episode, but in that interim period.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think Luke. I mean, I think when I saw that episode, because I was behind, I knew that Mark Hamill made some type of cameo, but I didn't know what it was. I definitely did not know that he was as involved as he would be. In the back of my head now, I'm thinking, I guess Yoda's around, right? So no, this is sorry. Yeah, I'm crazy. I just almost I didn't even think about that. Who would be calling? I guess those are the only characters that really make sense. I guess I kind of thought maybe a Jedi doesn't show up, right? I mean, I maybe in the back of my head, I didn't want Luke to show up. He makes the most sense. Like you said, Ahsoka had already sort of really had no interest, right? Her motherly instincts, I guess, died somewhere in Clone Wars, and she's just like, he's cute, but I'm not that interested. I've got my own Thrawn issues to deal with. So I don't know. I mean, I almost like the idea of a new character, right? I guess in my head, what's the harm of introducing, someone new that maybe is Force sensitive and not a Jedi, because at least Last Jedi taught us that that's a possibility, right? I don't know why they would all of a sudden show up to a Imperial light speeder or light cruiser, at the end to save, to save anyone.
Yeah, it makes the most sense that it's Luke, but I don't know. I mean, look, here's the thing. We'll talk about the last episode. I think that's like what you have the bulk of your notes about. So we could talk about that generally. The finale is Luke Skywalker shows up on an Imperial freighter to save everyone, saves the day, basically, and does all the cool lightsaber shit that all you fucking nerds had wet dreams about for the past, like, however long. Okay. When that happened, when that X-Wing showed up, I was like, oh, shit. And then because I didn't know it was going to happen. I watched the show like as it aired, and I didn't know. I somehow avoided that spoiler. And then I was like, that's fucking Luke the second that X-Wing showed up. And then then he comes in the cloak. I'm like, that's fucking Luke. And then I got kind of teary-eyed, man, because like it is a character that means a lot to me and has meant for basically my entire life, Yeah. And so it's like, it was cool. Like I'm willing to admit it was cool. But like people are reacting to it like you wouldn't believe, or maybe you would. Like these people are having like Mandalorian is the best thing to happen to Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back, and like all this stuff. And then I hated it because I was like, these fucking guys don't understand anything about anything. And I get it. Like they don't really care. It's not like anyone cares about cinema if you're a Star Wars fan, right? You just like, you want to see cool shit. Like there's few people that kind of overlap, like that like it, that like good shit, and then also Star Wars a lot, and like the good shit of Star Wars. Anyway, what did you think about it? I mean, were you like, did you get emotional about it? Were you like, or were you just a cold, calculated, watcher of Mandalorian just to say you finished it and saw it?
So I was entertained, right? I feel like Russell Crowe at the end of Gladiator. Like I'm entertained, like as the Mandalorian, the show in my head is like being murdered essentially. So I had heard that he was on, but I hadn't seen the episode. And in my head, I had thought that it was like a passing, sort of like I guess some of the new movies did, where it was like a passing cameo, but not a full on action scene. I'm going to be part of this show from now on.
Like he shows up like on a comm link or like a video screen, and he says exactly. Rogue One reporting in, I'm coming to rescue you guys. Like, and then it's like cut the credits. It's not like
or like he's like cloaked, and you sort of see him like just passing. I don't know. I mean, it was cool. There's a great shot where like it's him pretty much as soon as he pops out, but there's like a you see his black glove, and then the camera tracks down the green lightsaber. I mean, it was great. It was really cool. It was something that you can't deny is fun to watch. So I was entertained while I saw it, but then, when it finished, I sort of thought like, well, in retrospect, maybe I wish it didn't happen. Right. It was almost an immediate regret that it did.
Why do you wish it didn't happen? Why did you regret it?
I just liked that this was, it's like an incestuous galaxy at this point, where the Skywalkers touch everything, and understanding that Baby Yoda is or Grogu is force sensitive, and naturally, that there's only so many Jedi left, I guess. I just would have liked for them to keep it away from the Skywalkers as long as possible. Outer Rim to me, I just want one show that has nothing to do with the Skywalkers, and I think that the world is all of a sudden a lot more limited as to what can really happen with the Mando's plot.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to have anything else to do with the show, though. I really think like that could very well be his little scene. Then he leaves to go train Grogu, and then that's kind of he goes off and does that thing, and then there's a Luke Skywalker 10-episode show like 3 years from now that tells that story. Like, but I don't know if he's going to come back into Mando's world, because I can't imagine why. Yeah. Unless Mando has to go get Grogu from the temple for some reason.
No, I think that's right. And it's sort of like it's just a new journey, right? I mean, we had 2 seasons of Mando taking care of and chasing Grogu, and now they're split apart. So I guess there's some growth that comes with that in the episode, and that you have to, if you're going to stay on board, you have to accept that they're parted. So they'll go their different ways, and Mando will have his own new adventures. So maybe you're right. And if that is the case, and if they continue to, keep it sort of away from things that we already know, then I'm interested and I'm still on board. It just, it's your classic, what is it? Deus Ex Machina, where Luke just comes in, the battle droids or the destroyer droids all of a sudden are really just a mechanism for Luke to have his, juxtaposition of the Vader scene at the end of Rogue One. And it just felt like it was, it just didn't feel necessary to me.
Yeah, I mean, when he fucking collapses the one, with the sheer force, just to be badass, I was like, that just makes no sense. Even in context of that battle, just slash it like you did the rest of them. That's like a waste of energy and force power to me. And that's just that's clearly such a video game move.
Yeah. And I just, yes, it just didn't seem necessary to me. I mean, all of a sudden the destroyer droids are not as powerful as you thought they were. I mean, and this sets Luke and his powers way above Mando and anyone else, right? I mean, he took out an entire platoon, whereas Mando was struggling with one. I will say, and I have to give credit to some article, not only does that track the Rogue One scene, but it tracks the Anakin sort of temple scene in Revenge of the Sith very well, where you sort of see a cloaked figure walk through the halls, you see it on camera, and instead of killing children, Padawans, Luke is killing these destroyer droids. So
yeah, what the Death Troopers, or what are they called? The I don't know. Who fucking cares? That's the point. I don't like it. There's just another more powerful trooper that we're shown are really powerful. So that way, when Luke cuts them up like butter, we're expected to understand how powerful he is.
And that's the only reason they're there, right? Is for Luke to have that final scene.
They're introduced in the middle of the season when they go and get Baby Yoda, and then we're like, oh fuck, these things are. And then you think maybe they're force sensitive and all that. I thought the same thing. And they're just set up purely for fodder for Luke to cut up in the last episode. And it's like,
make him out of
how
best
powerful
cars.
is he? Is he this is the Jedi thing that really fluctuates. And I don't think anyone actually knows the answer to this question. Is are they fucking superheroes, or can they get killed? I mean, I saw, in Order 66, some of them just got kind of murked, 3 stormtroopers kind of circled them and killed them. It's but then Luke takes on 20, and I know he's supposed to be powerful. It's been 7 years. He's been honing his Jedi Master skills. He's been lifting more rocks, swinging on more vines and shit like that. And he's feeling pretty frisky, doing a lot of CrossFit, feeling good. But I don't know. I just, that was such a pandering scene to all the fuck, to every fuck that didn't like The Last Jedi. That's exactly what they wanted 67-year-old Mark Hamill to do, and without thinking about how ridiculous that would have been.
Yeah, I mean,
because 67-year-old Obi-Wan in A New Hope can barely get his arthritis out to fight Vader. That fight is absurd. It's stupid.
Might as well be with walkers, right?
Yeah, but it's not about the fight. It's about the characters. It's what you care about, And so anyway, all right.
And that's it, right? I mean, that's why it felt, at the end of it felt cheap, just not necessary, a fun time, but at the expense of, maybe some real storytelling where they could have, put some emotion into the final. The final scene was emotional enough, but it didn't need to happen. It felt very forced, and it felt like it was pandering.
So Mark Hamill plays this character according to the in credits. Yeah, I would posit to you that he doesn't play this character 1 minute, except for when he removes the hood. He is obviously not doing the choreographed fight scenes. There is absolutely no way. And then when I say Mark Hamill, I mean maybe he's standing there and then they de-age his face, like we saw in even going back to in Marvel and Civil War when they show young Robert Downey Jr. in that scene, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, is this going to start happening? And little did you know that they're going to start doing this on the reg. We saw it with Tarkin and Rogue One, and then now we see it with Mark Hamill, and it fucking looks weird, man. And there's nothing that you can tell me. I know it's a marvel it's a marvel of computer generating technology, but your brain, my brain, is this is weird. Because he looks it just looks weird. The whole time, this is a video game character with real people, and it's bizarre.
And for me, what the ultimate one thing that just hit me is it just takes away from the greater cameo, right? The cameo in the classic sense, and this is dumb. I think of the newer Starsky and Hutch movie with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. At the end, there's
what a reference here. You're really in
there's
your
like
bag right now.
there's the old Starsky and Hutch. You show up at the end, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh well, like they got these guys to do it. Like they came out here and did the cameo. I understand they're not important to the story, but it's like it's a cool nod, right? Like they brought the actual human beings in and they did this thing. If all of a sudden, this is what cameos turn into, don't we lose that? I mean, it's oh well, now with CGI, like that's not a cameo anymore. That's just there's no effort in that. I mean, understanding it's impressive digitally to be able to do that. It's art. You just lose some of it, So I don't like it. I would hate to think that that is where things are heading. If it's not a main character, either temporary or continuing character that they would bring Luke in like that. I wasn't for it. Now what would have happened otherwise? I think you don't need those new stronger droids, which really are again fodder and not a plot point. And I don't know where Grogu goes, but I mean that's not my job. I would have liked to see it go somewhere else. If Grogu ends up at Luke's temple, maybe that's the series finale. That's the wrap to where of his story, and you just don't really know. As opposed to now we have a season 3 where we have to acknowledge Grogu as the main or one of the main characters. Even if we follow Mando more so, I mean, it's gonna his being with Luke is gonna quote unquote give his life to protect the child. It's just didn't need it.
I got a little dusty eyed when little Grogu's being carried away by body double Mark Hamill, and he's like waving and like they're and then you get Jin takes his helmet off and he's getting a little dusty eyed, and I was kind of into that. I was feeling it a little bit, their little bond they had going on. So in a way that mission accomplished. That's really like the crux of the show, is making you believe in that relationship, and I did. I thought Pedro Pascal gives a really good performance, and
with and without a helmet, he does great.
Nothing role, right? I mean, it's pretty underwritten. It's supposed to be. He's obviously very stoic, but you really kind of believe he kind of falls for this kid, in a fatherly way. And the scenes where he takes his helmet off, are really good. He's just doing a lot, I think, with not saying anything.
Yeah,
I really enjoy his performance, and I'm glad he's part of the show in the universe. It's a good character. So in that way, mission accomplished, right?
I think maybe I would have preferred if he didn't take his helmet off in the episode where they infiltrate a base, one of the many episodes. So the first time we really see him take his helmet off to where a human or a live creature sees it is Grogu.
That probably hits harder. Yeah,
it still has a good amount of emotional impacts, and I was the same way. He takes the helmet off. Grogu touches his face. Piece of trivia: the last time that a thing touched this actor's face, it didn't end so well. Game of Thrones reference.
Yeah, Red Viper.
Yeah, but no, it was good. They both played that part well. The R2 sort of piece was interesting, where Grogu was hesitant to go to Luke until he sees R2. He's not showed any affinity to droids or astromech droids or anything. So is there some history there? I don't know.
I guess R2 would have been at the temple, the original Jedi temple, because he was the Anakin. So he's always kind of lingering around there, loitering around.
I would hate to think that it was just, it seemed very purposeful, right? That he would see R2 and then all of a sudden be willing to go over and leave Mando.
I think I would have preferred, and I mean, it was fine. And they did what they did. At least it wasn't it was still effective and good with what they did, with the exception of the CGI. But it's I get it. You don't want to recast. You rather have Mark Hamill, because if you recast that, half the people are that sucks too. There's always going to be someone bitching about it. But whatever. I would have liked to have seen Mando be the victorious person in the final scene. He saves Baby Yoda. He takes down the droid with the Darksaber. And then he's the hero, and then that still creates the whole conflict between him and Bo-Katan or whatever. And then Grogu, by message from Luke or something, who heard about, who felt all this, gets a message and then drops Grogu off at the temple. And we don't see Luke, but we see the cloak, we see the hand, the robot hand, We see the back of them maybe with the hood on, and we see like a Baby Yoda looking up at Luke, and maybe Mark Hamill could do the dialogue,
Yeah.
and he could say something. They could still have that dialogue, but you don't see Luke, but you fucking know who it is, and then cut to credits. I they were just trying to do a pure Luke badass thing, and but to me, and what I always say is like I have an imagination. So I know Luke's a badass because I imagined all these cool things he did after Return of the Jedi, and in Return of the Jedi, he's doing badass shit. So I didn't need to see a video game fight of some dude doubled as Mark Hamill doing that shit to know that he was doing that shit. You know what I mean? I just always knew he was out there doing that shit. And people just can't. They couldn't get over the fact that he was an old man in The Last Jedi, and he had this arc that they didn't expect. So they needed to see him eviscerate a droid with his bare hands for some reason.
And so that's a good point. He did just essentially earn the dark saber, right? Use it. He doesn't use the dark saber, and maybe that's the purpose. But there's also Grogu, who apparently is extremely powerful in the Force. Maybe he throws in, right? I know he's tired.
He has that tantrum. He gets one last tantrum, and then
we saw it with the mud skipper horn or whatever. Mando's about to die, and Grogu lifts him up. I mean, presumably Grogu, if he is so powerful and he's been hiding it, he could, maybe you don't need the entire platoon, but maybe him and Mando go at it and they save the day, and then Luke shows up. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But I would have appreciated that more as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and whatever. What else did you think about the last episode? Do you have any thoughts before we conclude the show?
The Bo-Katan angle, I think will probably be the way things go. I thought that the destroyer droids looked like Lord Zed from Toy Story 2. So I was not that impressed.
Another good reference. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think they should have either tried to make them Force powerful. I mean,
no. Lord Zed is Power Rangers. Emperor Zurg is
Emperor Zurg. I'm sorry, I had that wrong in my notes. Yeah.
Lord Zed kind of looks like Lord Zed has his muscles, no skin, and he's wearing a metal thing.
He's still got the visor.
He's got the visor and the little Mercedes emblem on his head or whatever that is.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting is at the beginning of this episode, then also in the Bill Burr episode, they sort of dug into the people died on the Death Star, that classic Clerks episode or Clerks dialogue. They sort of, and then Bill Burr was we all have our limits, and but then they come in here and they absolutely just decimate the stormtroopers. I mean, they just merciless. And one scene that really hit me is they're on the catwalk, and it's a great scene where the Bo-Katan and her accomplice jump off the side, and then they Cara Dune and Fennec get trapped, right? And the stormtroopers are hands up. And to me, that's now the stormtroopers are showing mercy, and they do this pretty often, and then they just get destroyed by the Mandos. I thought that was it was interesting, right? I don't know what the rules of engagement are in Star Wars, but apparently, if you give someone an opportunity to put their hands up, you're going to die, and that's okay. That's just sort of how it works.
I mean, our heroes in this universe are guerrilla warriors, right? They're insurrective, anti-government establishment people. So the question is whether they need to play by the rules.
Some of that, from the Empire's cronies, but they're cronies, right? So it doesn't,
we're not supposed to believe what they say because they're they're villains, right? Yeah, I've always been intrigued by that's what I thought we were gonna get more with Finn was the whole, we're massacred by the hundreds by you guys, and we're faceless henchmen, but there are people underneath there. They're just and doing their fucking jobs, getting hundreds of them dying, while all the heroes make witty quips as they murder hundreds of people, and it's
with no plan for how to govern. Yeah, no plan with how to govern thereafter. I mean, the New Republic, they sort of get into it. Doesn't really seem to be doing a fantastic job. They're sort of just there. Another thing I thought was great about the droids is that they don't have access to doors. They just punch. I like that. It's sort of if they would have had an astromech droid, they could have probably opened doors and they would have been punching glass, which I thought was good.
Big charge up pattern there too. They got to get you got to put them on the charging pad for however long. They got to be cooled to a certain level, and a lot of little bells and whistles to work out there. I feel like if the next round of those get released.
Well, and there's a throwaway line that they solved the final problem and that they took the humans out. And I'm thinking, like, weren't the prequels wasn't there an entire war fought with battle droids? So I don't know when they went back to back and forth.
Yeah. They were like, exactly. They were like, oh no, we need to get rid of droids because we have clones. And then we lost with the clones and they all like died because they aged so rapidly. So now we're gonna have soldiers again. Oh no, soldiers actually stuck. We're gonna go back to droids because like 30 years ago or 18 years ago there wasn't this whole war that we're all aware of because we're all still like old enough to remember that. Yeah, I mean we're being like the guys on YouTube right now that like, but it's a prerogative, this is what we do.
Yeah, but I mean overall I definitely enjoyed it. I like season 1 I think a little bit better just because it's such an open universe, and you just as you learn more, I guess like you said, your imagination maybe is the best writer there is. But I think they did a fantastic job. There was some great episodes in this season. Timothy Oliphant was great. I liked teaming up with the Sand People. I thought that was a really cool angle that you really don't see or hadn't seen previously, as far as I know. And regardless of how it ended, I'm excited to see what happens the next season, just because I think they did a good job with this one. So hopefully, they know where they're going. And I will definitely watch. Probably not timely, probably not early enough to avoid spoilers again, but so be it.
Yeah, you need to get on that better. You're gonna have to figure something out. I feel like I don't know what that looks like for you, but you need to. If you're gonna podcast about stuff, like you got to be, you got to watch the shit as it comes out. I mean, the next season, it's the story of King Arthur, right? The Dark Saber is, the fucking Excalibur, and it's the classic story of the hero that doesn't want to be king, but ends up becoming king, and in fact, the very qualities that make him not want to be king make him a good king. Harry Potter, Jon Snow, I mean, you name it, the character we've seen in recent pop culture, and it's clearly setting up Mando to be that fucking guy. Like,
I don't want it. I yield. Yeah,
exactly.
What's interesting to me is that Mando. I'm interested in sort of the line where Bo-Katan explains that he's an extremist. That everyone else takes off their helmet. It's not a big deal. To me, that's a strange dichotomy, right? Where he lives by this code that is so Mandalorian, but has really no interest in the Mandalorian homeworld becoming, raising back to power. So
because he's not a Mandalorian by race. He's a Mandalorian by culture. Yeah. So like he doesn't. I don't know if he's ever been to Mandalore. Or I think maybe it has been already taken over by the time he really gets raised and becomes part of the foundling culture. But yes, this is the stuff that interests me, right? This is what I thought the show was going to be about, was telling me this other lore and mythology about another pretty interesting culture in the Star Wars universe, and all that stuff.
They could have come back and taken Luke's place also, right? I mean, I think that would have made me happier. It's still a escape, from peril.
You think all is lost, and then some really powerful, like maybe all the ones that forged his armor, like all those guys, show up, and because we haven't seen them all season, and then we have the foundling versus the Bo-Katan style of Mandalorian. They had this whole standoff about who's the accurate practitioner of all that. There's a lot of stuff they could have done. It's so clear it was just like a wank this off, nerds.
Yeah, and it feels like you had said they're patching a hole. I almost would have liked to have seen Grogu grow up outside of the Force, right, or training. They kept saying he's a danger to himself, or he won't be safe until he learns to train and harness his powers. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'd like to see a Yoda type creature who is not righteous and a Jedi, and what that looks like, right? Yeah,
if he's just goes on adventures with Mando and is kind of a bounty hunter. He just uses the blaster,
sort of understands his powers.
It's like Rocket Raccoon, a little bit snarky, but not a good, kind of an anti-hero sort of. Yeah, it would have been different, right? Instead, he's just going for Yoda 2.0.
That's what was great about the Mandalorian. He's a bounty hunter who sort of lives by a creed and found this creature, and it's just completely different than most anything I'd experienced in Star Wars. And now it seems like maybe it's not that different.
Maybe it's not that different, Mitch. This is the way, though, we're told. So we have to enjoy it. Eat that Disney shit, you fucking pig. Eat that slop.
Son of a mud scuffer.
Well, it's been another episode, a not so cheery episode of In the Can part of the Barmender Podcast Network. But sometimes when Star Wars fans get together, no one hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans. It's just we can critique it like, and all told, we love the show. I mean, I would recommend it to anyone. It's well made and entertaining. But obviously, I'm going to nitpick it just because I understand it to a unique degree. Any other parting thoughts, Mitch, before we depart? Before we head to the Jedi Temple to get trained by D.H. Mark Hamill?
I'm going to refuse to go to the Jedi Temple because I know what happens there. It's the same.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Or you just go beat the shit out of Kylo Ren like the first day you get there. You stuff him in a locker, and well, then maybe that's what creates the evil because you bully him. I mean, that's Terminator shit right there. I don't know about that.
This is the one area Star Wars hasn't touched on, as far as I know, is time travel, right? So maybe I don't want to introduce that.
Yeah. Well, with this all said, I'll leave you with this as we depart. This has been another episode of In the Can, part of the Barmender Podcast Network. Mitch, I'll see you later.
All right.